Be back in a minute with a great interview from our in-studio team who put the spotlight on the Hawksbill Project, a charity based out of the UK whose founder, Scott Ians, spent decades tagging turtles in the Virgin Islands. We can't wait to hear more when we come back. Welcome back. Now, as a graduate student at UVI, Scott Ians was well known for his work in local turtle conservation, which he continued even after moving to England in 2017. The Hawksbill Project has spent the last 2 years tagging and protecting turtles across the Caribbean. Let's hear more.
Welcome everybody. I'm excited to be here with Scott Ians, when he lived here in the Virgin Islands and known as the Turtle Guy, right?
I was the turtle guy. Yes, I mean there are numerous turtle people, but yes, I was one of them.
So tell us, Scott, about your project and what you're doing.
So after the 2017 hurricanes, unfortunately Irma and Maria, my wife wanted to return to England, so I now live in England. When I was living in England, I couldn't not do turtles, so effectively what I did was I created they're called a charity, a UK-based charity, and we will be a separate non-for-profit in the States as well called the Hawksbill Project. And the goal of this project is to assist with other projects that have data gaps for the collection and information, conservation, preservation of hawksbill sea turtles because they are critically endangered.
Tell us what you've been able to sort of accomplish, how long you've been up and running, and what you've been able to accomplish so far.
So this is the second year of our existence. Again, the Hawksbill Project.co.uk is the actual website address. And in 2 years we have done, and it is actually fairly difficult as I sit here and wipe my brow. What we do is what we start with is kind of island assessments, and that is very tiring, very difficult, and fairly frustrating. So essentially what we've done in Carriacou, which is an island in the Grenadines north of Grenada, and we just did this in St. John over the summer, is essentially you have an island habitat, St. John or Carriacou, and you say, how many hawksbill sea turtles do we have? And someone goes, I don't know. No one's ever looked at that. And so then you start piecing the puzzle together, and people say, well, I see turtles here, and I see turtles here, and we see turtles here, and we see turtles here. And it kind of puts a narrative together. Okay, I think we know where we're going to see turtles, but you actually have to do the research. You have to do the work to find out what essentially you're going to find out. So in Carriacou last year and in St. John this year, we did an island assessment. And that basically means we get in and we swim, more or less, swim around the entire island. So from end of June to middle of July, we were on St. John. We basically swam the entire length of that island, excluding a few spots that we couldn't get to because of the weather. And in that, you are counting and catching and documenting turtles if you can. So that's what we did.
What have you found? I mean, why is this research important, and what have you found?
Why is this research important, and what have you found? So depending on the sources that you read for your information, Caribbean, and this is specifically to the Caribbean hawksbill sea turtles have been sorry, I'm getting a phone call here. I'm actually in the UK. So Caribbean hawksbill sea turtles have been dramatically reduced in terms of their population abundance level. So pre-Columbus, pre-European arrival, there were significantly more hawksbill sea turtles. And if you read the literature, scientific literature out there, it's pretty fairly certain that the decline has been enormous to the extent of about 99%. So what we're looking at is about 1% of what should be here. And so we need to, and this is what's important, is again, this goes back to the assessments, is St. John had no idea what they had prior to us doing the study. Carriacou in Grenada had no idea what they had prior to us doing this study. And now, because of these two studies, we have significantly more information than we had prior. And so now the island of St. John, the National Park Service, Friends of the VI National Park, Department of Natural Resources, any one of these entities now at least has an idea of the number of hawksbill sea turtles in their waters so that they can go about monitoring or protecting them if they wanted to.
So they could not want to? I mean, I think that you're
So it depends on location. This really
Right.
depends on location. So in Grenada, which is, again, I actually just got back from Grenada. I think it's Thursday today. I flew back and got back to the UK on Sunday. And so in Grenada, in Carriacou, there's actually an open season for them, and and enforcement and protection is very difficult. In the U.S. Virgin Islands, a little different story. Endangered Species Acts, tourism, different attitude. And so in the U.S. Virgin Islands, the situation is much better for them than it is in Carriacou, Grenada. But again, so it's not a matter of not wanting to protect them, as well as, so St. John has been done. So St. John is very interesting because, well, and this may be a question you're going to ask later, but the information that we found was very interesting. And why do you care? Or why does someone in the U.S. Virgin Islands care? Well, 600 meters to the north in one particular location, meaning the British Virgin Islands, same thing as Carriacou, Grenada, they have an open season. So they have a season in which turtles can be harvested legally. And that's 600 meters to the north of St. John. So how islands, countries, nations manage their resources, which is what a hawksbill sea turtle is very important. But again, this steps back to you need to know how many you have. You need to have an idea of where they are. And so these baseline studies allow for future questions to be asked.
And give us some success stories. What are a couple of success stories that you've had?
What are a couple of success stories? So this is one of these hilarious things where you want success stories, and it really is. I don't want to say it's success or failure. It simply is a story, yes. Right? So if you're looking at Carriacou, Grenada, we did an assessment around Carriacou last October. And it was very disheartening to some extent because we didn't see as many turtles as we'd hoped to see, as we'd expect to see, given the enormity of the habitat that they have. But within the assessment, we did find the location where they seem to be most abundant, where their densest population seems to be. And we just came back from that study, from that location this year. And so now, armed with the first year study, which again, frustrating, can be sad, can be disheartening or tiring at times. Because of that, it allowed for a very successful second year trip where we documented twice as many turtles, more than twice as many turtles as we did in the first year. As a success story relates to St. John, now success is I don't want to say difficult, but what it is it's realistic. So now St. John has an idea of what they have in terms of hawksbills. And now every year, even if the Hawksbill Project doesn't come back, if the University of the Virgin Islands, if Friends of the Virgin Islands National Park, if the National Park Service, if somebody else wants to do this study again, wants to start looking where we found most of the hawksbills around St. John, they have information to do so, which better utilizes the financial resources that they have, because these studies are expensive. So that's basically the success story, is that even though it may not feel ultimately like success, and it may be very difficult, frustrating, and time consuming, ultimately any study is successful because any information is better than no information.
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up, what do you want from the public? How would you like the public to get involved and help you?
Well, so this is actually very beautiful. So a couple things. One is I did a talk at the I believe it's a newly opened library on St. John. Mm-hmm. And immediately a couple individuals came up to me and offered to give us housing while we were on St. John, which is hugely important because again, just to give you an idea, this project that we did this 2 weeks in St. John, it cost about let's just round it up, $20,000 US. And any of that we can get, from lodging to airplane flights to petrol to food, anything that we can get donated is immensely important in allowing us to do this work. On top of which, and this is the beautiful thing of this, is that because St. John is such a tourist destination, we've already had 2 people. Now, granted, they both live on St. John, but 2 of them go snorkeling quite often in the bays around St. John. And now, because of the work that we've done, they can take photos, which they already have. They can take photos of hawksbill turtles with tags. And then if you send that to me, or if you send that to the Hawksbill Project, or you send that to Friends of the Virgin Islands National Park or the National Park Service, you have a chance to get a hold of me. We can ID that turtle, and we can see that turtle is still living in St. John. So from the littlest thing of going snorkeling and taking photos all the way up to actually financially contributing to this project would be greatly appreciated by the public of St. John.
And how do people get a hold of you?
How do people get a hold of me? So people get a hold of me, the hawksbillproject.co.uk. That is the best way to communicate to me. You can drop me a message through our website, and I will respond right away.
Awesome. Scott Eanes, thank you so much. We're happy to have you, and we hope that you come back and keep us updated on all of the great things that you're doing.
Hopefully back next year, roughly the same time.
What a great discussion, and thank you for joining us this Sunday. We can't wait to catch up with you here next week. Until then, stay safe and stay informed. The Source is online all the time. Keep visiting our sites for around-the-clock community coverage, and tune in on social for updates at the top of each hour. Until next time, I'm Adisha Penn.